Planning an event and wondering how you can give your attendees the best experience possible? Take advantage of customized meetings with Hilton that make it easier than ever to incorporate health, wellness, and great breaks. Hilton will help you build an extraordinary meeting that attendees will remember. To book your next meeting or event, go to meetings.hilton.com.
Are you followers?
Okay, so we're gonna probably add.
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here are your hosts, BizBash CEO David Adler and Editor-in-Chief Beth Kormanik.
Welcome to GatherGeeks. David is away this week, but we're bringing you his conversation with Elasea Douglas and Sadiki Pierre, partners in the live jazz duo Acute Inflections. They're a bass and voice duo who performs at all types of events, from weddings to corporate functions and, as we'll hear, even to funerals. For our planner audience, they will share what it's like to work with you. They'll talk about their process on everything from song selection to wardrobe, as well as tips on where and where not to position your entertainment. Spoiler alert, don't put them near the restrooms. They'll also share how planners can empower their entertainment to do their best, which in turn makes an event even better for guests. Let's listen.
So welcome Ellen Sadiki to GatherGeeks by BizBash. I have had the pleasure of listening to you for years, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about the life of a musician, especially using the event industry as their vehicle, because you're so successful in our business now. Acute Inflections has become a brand name in our industry, and you are absolutely everywhere. I'd love to get a little sense of what does it feel like to sort of be a success in New York City in the event industry. Elle, do you want to start?
It feels like a huge responsibility. Like you feel the...
Okay, why? I'm going to be interrupting a lot, and I want you to dig deep, because basically, music is about feeling, and it's about, I call it, intentional humanism, and that's what you do, and that's what I feel when I see you perform. So what is that responsibility that you have?
Knowing that this is not an easy journey, and to be in this position is doesn't come every day.
It was a hard getting here is hard, right?
So now that you are there, how do you remain relevant? How do you act in gratitude with everything that you're doing, every pursuit to not just be there, or not just arrive, but remain or go beyond,
Or just continue to impress too, I think. Right. I think part of the responsibility is when people contact us or people hire us, they set the bar like so high, They're like, oh, we have these CEOs getting together for this big conference, and you're the perfect act to impress them and blow them away. And it's like, whoa,
Why do they think that? What is your impression of why they think that? I mean, because obviously I think that too, because I see you perform and you feel the soul of what your music is. You watch your soul when we watch you perform. But what is it? Why does an event organizer want to put you guys forward because of what you're doing? What do you think you do? Like, what is in that brain of yours and that feeling of yours?
I think it's the authenticity of it. A lot of music nowadays is it's very synthetic, for lack of a better word. It's not music 500 years ago where it was created because of an emotion or a feeling or to tell a story. A lot of the music now is made with profit in mind or with the success in mind. And what we do is it's made purely for the art. If we don't actually like the song, we just won't do it.
How do you describe what you do? Like, how do I tell another event organizer, oh, this is what these guys do? Like, how do you describe your niche? They're looking at each other. You can't see this on the radio.
Because so many different directions to go.
I'd say people say jazz. We know it's not.
It's not jazz.
It's a fusion of as far back as opera, and it could be pop, it could be reggae, it could be a fusion of rock or Latin music. We've done huge Indian weddings and fused some of the Hindi music. So it's really just a fusion of all, world music to tell the story that best complements, whatever event we're at. I think that's why the organizers are so excited to work with us.
Yeah, and I think too, the professionalism and going the extra mile. Many times we'll speak to, while in conversation with a planner, we'll ask questions that usually get lost or missed, or because we're so small, they wouldn't think that certain things, even production-wise, would be necessary, and just our engagement.
Okay, so what are the questions that that an event organizer should be asking you as a musician or any musician to get it to be a story that's told as opposed to just a performance?
Yeah.
Like what are the questions that we should be asking? Give me
I
the
think
first one.
The first one's the guests. Tell me about, who we're performing for. Where are they from? What do they like? Do you know what music they got married to or where they grew up, So we can try to touch them, try to get them to turn around like, wow, that's the song, I danced with, my wife to when we went on our first date, things like that. Personalize it as much as possible.
Yeah.
What's the second question?
The story is not just in the sound you're hearing. It's the visuals. It's our placement in the room. As if you're a guest, when you're stepping into the room, what is the first thing you see? What is the first thing you feel or smell? Like all of those things are a part of the presentation and what they should be asking even us.
Yeah, like color scheme. What do you want us in a modern themed outfit? Do you want us in something more vintage? Do you want it to be more casual or very formal?
How do they know? Like, what do you give them advice on what you see? Because you see this all the time. They're going to say, "Oh, I want modern," but do you really think that modern would be appropriate?
No,
how do you? So they don't really know, but you get them to want to participate in the discussion,
right?
So how do you move them into the direction that you think is appropriate for the performance? This is sort of every event organizer needs to listen to this,
right?
So we ask a few basic questions and to get a sense of who they're working for, the guest, the age range, and then we, once we gain their trust, we'll say, although we've agreed to these things, we'll read the room, because sometimes we have to change on the fly, or do things a little longer or shorter, or we get wind that there's a particular person that's coming that's very important and they like a particular artist. So if we know it, we'll try to do it real quick, and we may not have planned for it originally, but just to be, ask enough questions so that there's a trust, and then usually they leave it to our discretion to read the room. And
so reading the room, how do you describe the art of reading the room? Like, what is that? What are you looking at when you read the room as an artist? Like, are you seeing the pacing? Do you seeing people?
Well,
I want to pull it at your head.
So for us, one of the biggest things we realized, if we had a song memorized and we were able to look at the audience and see facial expressions, we were able to determine whether they really enjoyed a song or whether it was more background music. So I think about 2 years ago now, we decided to memorize our entire repertoire so we can 100% connect and focus on the audience's reactions. And we'll notice, hey, if they love that Beatles tune, maybe we'll do a Paul McCartney song or something from the Turtles, or if they loved something from Coldplay, we'll do something a little more modern, So you just kind of adjust your set on the fly, seeing what they're moving to and what they're responding to.
So I guess what you're saying also is that an event organizer needs to make sure that any musician that they hire is not locked in the song sheets and
that's a dream. I know it's very
ideally,
difficult. So I think one of the reasons why it's difficult for musicians to do that is a lot of groups, they're switching out musicians all the time. It's sometimes one is not available, so it is difficult for them to be what they say off book, but as a musician, that should be a goal of yours, to
just be very diverse and well-rounded. And I think for us, it doesn't sound sexy or flashy, but it's all about being over-prepared. There are countless events that we show up to with 3 or 4 different outfit choices because we didn't we didn't get the feeling that the event planner really took the question seriously of what colors or what style we should wear. And we'll show up and say, hey, what you picked isn't going to work. Let us wear this.
How do you know that? What do you see that in your brain that says, oh, this is not going to work?
I mean, I think if they tell us the florals, or sometimes we'll go online and look at pictures of the venue and say, if we're going to be up on that balcony, we really need to be in something striking, or if we're going to be in the center of the room. I think a lot of times the planners are playing it safe, and if you hire us, it's not play it safe time. It's time to blow people away, and let us help you do that.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of placement, you're a duo, and you have a huge upright bass. Yeah. It's part of a trio in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And you really are sort of like a trio when you have that big piece of equipment in there. But how do you like place it? What is the right place for if an event organizer comes to you and says, where should we be? What is your rule of thumb? So I'm going to do everything that we talk about today is sort of how do you teach the event organizer to ask the right questions and to have the right instincts?
One of the important things is to think about presentation. What we personally, we like to consider ourselves an art piece. We are a live art that is in the room. So where should you place it? Where is the most attractive? Are we against a wall that is framed by two pillars, things like that? Or definitely not next to the sushi, not so close to the bar where it's just a
cluttered mess.
Yeah, and not close to a bathroom because it looks like we're no longer important, or we're not a part of the room.
So those are the things that you will look at and say, no.
Right. We'll look at a floor plan and say, it's better to have a center of the room or like a position where there are great sight lines from multiple angles. Mm-hmm. There are times when we're right in the middle of a room or we're behind the bar up on a stage so that there's a 360 view of us performing.
And what is what about the idea that are you background music or are you foreground music? And how do you sort of decide whether you are performing or whether you're music in the background? How do you sort of do you think about that?
We think about it, but honestly, we just perform, and I guess the guests decide that, and they decide it in the moment. There's times that they'll be in conversation and then they'll stop because they notice a song that feels familiar. They'll enjoy it for a moment, and then they'll probably go back to their conversation after that song. So I think we're there and we're giving a game the entire time. And people just have that freedom to check in and check out whenever they feel.
Is that how people do react in a sense?
Yeah, for cocktail hour especially.
Cocktail hour, yeah.
Dinner performance is a little bit more engaged sometimes.
Right.
We do interact with the audience depending on, I guess, how attentive that moment is. And then there's sometimes even during cocktail hour where I might engage with just one person, and that's more than enough,
Yeah, and I know a lot of the planners have realized that there's a niche out there that is a little untapped because our sound is not overwhelming. They would typically just play background music at some of these events because a lot of the bands would be too much, the equipment would be unsightly, or just take up too much space. We have such a small footprint. And we're focused on making sure that we're not too loud. You can still have a conversation whenever we're performing. We'll choose songs that are appropriate for the time. We're not going to play a Bruno Mars song during a romantic, dinner where a guy's about to propose. We'll maybe choose a slower love ballad or something.
But how do you when you are doing a cocktail party, how does the music complement the conversation? Have you thought about that in terms of that's an interesting thing. I mean, you're really creating, I believe that event organizers are collaboration artists in the end. Mm-hmm. And so that the music is also raising the energy level.
Right.
And so do you think about that? And does it change conversations? Have you noticed? What's your experience in that?
We'll adjust what we're playing. If the energy in the room is, everyone is loud, and we'll keep our energy up to suit everyone. But if everyone is a little bit more, low key, we'll
relaxed.
keep it. Yeah, we'll keep it just a little hair above it so that people don't get too, I guess, what do you call it, lethargic. Definitely not. We definitely we're constantly adjusting based on the energy of the room, just so that we complement versus, I guess,
And
conflict.
how do you when you compliment it, how do you raise the energy level in the room? If you think that it's sort of dying, what would an event organizer say to you to do?
She'll sometimes, if we, she'll say, like pick it up a little bit, and we'll either speed up the tempo of some songs, or we'll choose. We have a selection of songs that are really up there.
That everyone's, if we play Ain't No Mountain High enough, everyone's going to engage. So that.
What?
Yeah.
We have
Okay.
our go-to.
Definitely.
Okay,
have our
so
go-to
what
songs,
are
yeah.
the go-to?
We can't give you all our secrets.
Well, give me a couple of them. Give me a couple of your go-to ones that are going to raise the energy of a room.
We have a very fun version of LOVE. It's
Yeah.
really fast and swingy. People love that.
Ain't no mountain.
Ain't No Mountain High enough.
And that would done at the cocktail hour, let's say.
Yeah. Those are great raise the energy songs. We have a fun version of Rolling Stones' Satisfaction. That's another one that people love.
And sometimes I wanted to mention earlier, sometimes if we notice that people are starting to dance, we'll just look at each other and do a medley of songs on the fly that just kind of keeps the dancing going for a while.
Yeah. Moon Dance, Fever.
Don't tell them all.
Okay, that's all you get.
But no, so when you see someone dancing, that's a symbol to you? That's a signal to you that you're connecting?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
and that we should probably keep this going, because if they see one person dancing, then it
It
inspires
spreads a
other
lot.
people.
Yeah, there've been several events where the planner's like, "Oh my God, everyone was dancing! I never expected that."
And is that a sign of success at an event when people are dancing?
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cherry on the cake.
It's cherry on the cake.
Yeah.
And I think artistically for us, because the bass and voice duo is so rare, and we know that most of the guests have never seen it before, for them to almost lose themselves. They've gone past the level of, wow, this is interesting. I've never seen this. I just enjoy this, and I want to dance with my wife or my boyfriend or whoever. So it's probably the highest compliment we can receive.
But how about on the conversation side? Is there anything that you're reading while people are having? Can you see conversations changing at all with music? Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
Like different types of music, they're different.
We notice with couples specifically when they walk in and there's tension. And, as the music continues, we notice them kind of, starting to get along a little bit, maybe hold
Really?
hands. Yeah. It's just, our music has a very soothing, I'd say even a little bit of romance effect to it.
Mm-hmm. I find too that people, they might come in rowdy and then they'll see us and they start to hold their glasses differently. They either, I won't say straighten up, but they get a little bit more proper at first until a few drinks in.
Start behaving
it's
themselves.
just funny that
Yeah.
they'll see us on the stage, and because of, I guess, our entire look, they feel inspired to be more sophisticated for at least the beginning.
It's definitely a great trendsetter and opening piece to an event. It kind of sets the bar up there and lets everyone know, hey, this is the tone for the evening, step up.
So I've been sort of advocating the idea that you have to, in a sense, in today's world of events, you have to break the fourth wall a little bit. Mm-hmm. You guys seem to keep the fourth wall up as part of a fantasy, right? Or do you break the fourth wall?
We do a little bit of both.
And do you know it? Do you not? Do you keep the fourth wall up when you think it's necessary and break it? How do you know when to break the fourth wall? You watch something.
When we see that people want to engage, they're looking at us, they're clapping, or they're making comments towards us. That's when I realize, okay, yes, they want to have that connection, the banter and everything, which we do sometimes. We'll make up a song about an audience member who's engaging right there on the fly sometimes. So we do break it. Sometimes it's kind of nice to just hide. But
Jess Gordon, who's one of the great event organizers, event planners, designers, she says that she likes actually changing the room in real time while watching everybody. I assume that you are part of that. Do you interact in real time with event organizers too?
Oh yeah.
What does that?
Having
What
to.
does that look like? Do they come up and whisper in your ear, or
sometimes they'll come
and
and
what do
whisper.
they tell you? turn the music down or turn the music up, or like
yeah,
what is like?
sometimes faster, slower, 5 minutes, do an extra song. They really like that last number, do something similar to that.
Yeah.
So they're your partner.
Yeah,
Oh, definitely.
yeah.
In many
Definitely.
cases.
And so it's kind of fun too, because there's this unspoken language. Let's say they don't come up to us. They'll be, I guess, further away and do sign language.
Oh, what
or
is there a sign language? Like you can't see it on the podcast here, but like what? Like the stretch sign language?
Yeah, like
Right, right,
2
right.
minutes, rolling it so like to continue a little bit, or they'll do the decapitation.
Right.
Yeah, but it's funny that we don't even have that discussion, and it's just this
These
unspoken
universal signs.
Yeah,
universal
language.
Yeah, like I don't know if they assume all musicians just know what these mean.
But it works.
But there is an unwritten rule between the performer and the event organizer that's hiring you that you sort of take a cue from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on now that we've sort of got the rules of the road for performance today. Let's go a little bit back to your career and how did you get where you are? Why are you, what was your dream? What is a dream of a person that becomes a musician in New York City, which is like the coolest place in the world, right? Talk about your backgrounds a little bit. Where did you guys, where did you come from and what was your career? And then we'll move on to Sadiki.
So I was born and raised in New York. My family is from Jamaica. And I was always performing since childhood, singing.
Childhood, what does that mean?
Okay, yeah, right. Everyone says they start singing since they were 3, and
Were you 3?
I was pretty much 3. That's when the mantle was passed. And
Do you have a musical family?
yeah, sort of. My grandmother used to sing. My father sings. My mom sort of, but we tell her to just clap instead. But and so throughout, I guess junior high school, college, I would be a part of different productions in the school. I always jumped between acting, singing, and dancing. They all were things I went around in circles with. Sometimes I would sing more than I would dance, or act more than I would sing. So it always fluctuated. Graduated college and did a few off-Broadway shows, and then in 2009 I booked my first Broadway show, Fela on Broadway. I did that for the entire run. I was part of the original Broadway cast, and then we toured in Africa. And then after that, actually during the show, I started working on my own project and would produce a few concerts at the Knitting Factory, Nuyukan's Poet Cafe, Iridium Jazz Club. I've done things there.
And that was your own your career as an artist,
Yeah.
as opposed to being in the event world.
Right.
We're going to take a little break and come right back after this message from Hilton. So when's the big event? Hilton's here for planners with their exclusive customized meetings. Become a wow maker and save time by letting Hilton help you present an extraordinary event, one that leads to memorable and meaningful connections. Visit meetings.hilton.com and let Hilton help you.
My story would be much shorter. It has nothing to do with music. I mean, I come from a musical family, but I started playing the bass as a way to get out of class in 6th grade.
Where are you from originally?
I was born in Trinidad. Moved to the States when I was 8 years old. So I've been in New York ever since. And it's been a hobby. It's never I never took it that seriously, never wanted this career.
You
Never
had to practice a lot.
I wish I could say yes.
You had that natural talent. I was the worst at this.
Yeah, I guess I do have some natural talent.
Obviously.
And maybe not as much competition. There are probably a billion trumpet players, but not so many upright bass players anymore.
Why upright bass? That's like a big...
Well,
when did you start?
So I started in 6th grade because I noticed all the kids getting out of class to go to band practice. And I said, well, I want to get out of class. And they said, we don't have a bass player. So I said, okay, I'll do that. I won't have any competition. And
That's a huge piece of equipment.
It is, yeah.
You carry that around?
I do. It's a pain. I try to make her carry it, but she grumbles.
Of course, as I should.
Yeah.
So how did you guys form this group? Like, what was the What's the story behind this?
So I went to one of those concerts that she produced, and at the time I hadn't played bass in about 10 years. I retired after college. I didn't go to college for music. I went to college to be a pilot. And
Pilot? What kind of pilot? Like
a professional
airplane?
pilot. Yeah. And then 9/11 kind of killed that career. So I hadn't played bass in about 10 years, and when I met her, essentially she dragged me back out of retirement. And, one thing led to another, and we're sort of here. That's the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, but the
I don't know if you want the juicy
itself,
details.
Yes, we want the juicy details. Well, I want to know how you decided to go into use Acute Inflections as a vehicle to conquer the event industry. Because I want to take the lessons for other musicians out of that.
It happened. It happened unexpectedly. We performed. It was supposed to be a full band. The entire band didn't show up, and it ended up being just the two of us. And everyone loved it. And immediately we were asked to do a wedding and a dinner party, and that same evening. So the more we were asked to perform, the more we realized, okay, we both kind of have a little bit of a business background, slightly. Well, him more than I. We said, let's make a thing of it. And then I actually, at one point, worked in the event industry with a yacht company. I would do sales and actually put together some of the cruises, for people's birthdays.
So you understood the dynamics of the industry.
Yeah.
And I guess I understood the dynamics of sales and making relationships. So I think we just kind of put together both of the lessons we learned, recognized that if one accidental performance led to 3 gigs, that clearly there's a huge demand for whatever it is we've stumbled upon here.
Okay, so take me through the 3 gigs, and then what happens? You did the 3 gigs. How did you get the next hundreds of gigs?
Well, people just would, they'd be at the gig and they'd just ask, So a guest would walk up to us, say, I'm doing a birthday party, and then someone would walk up and say, my daughter's getting married in 3 months. So, they would ask, hey, what's the name of your group? Where can I find your stuff online? And at that time, we didn't have anything. We're like writing numbers on a piece of paper. So we decided we have to name this. We have to, get a website.
Get little business cards.
So let's play that out a little bit. So you're in it. How long before you decided to sort of, did you had enough? You were still doing part-time jobs still? Or you were still?
Still part-time in the beginning.
It was a few months. So within a few months.
So I think the accidental performance, our very first performance together, just the two of us, was in August of 2013. Mm-hmm. And I think roughly 6 months later, we decided to start pursuing this and came up with a name and LLC and website. And I think probably by early 2014 is when we were able to walk away from our other jobs and just, put 100% of our attention into this and the event industry.
So what advice do you give to others who all of a sudden have accidental performances that do really well?
Don't be afraid of taking the risk. It takes anything that is meant to be successful, you need to invest 100% into, fully focus on, not stress, not focus on 10,000 different things and try to make them all successful, but that one thing.
What is that one thing that you actually did? What was the one thing that you found?
Well, like in my case, I was still trying to audition for shows and perform with that group.
So you say do 100% attention on the idea.
On that idea.
Right. That idea, as opposed to trying to be, actor, singer.
Yeah, stop all that for now. I'm sure we'll go back to, that is what the future goes to allow Acute Inflections to open up other doors, acting, writing, whatever. Right. But grow that one thing. If you find it, if there's a spark, fan the flame to that thing and invest in it in a way that gives you an edge. There's a place for every great idea. I think it just needs to be fleshed out, chiseled, molded.
And so, at what point what did you learn about the event industry as you went through this? What were the biggest mistakes you made? this as a cautionary tale to others? Were there things that did you not charge enough? Did you do things that you didn't get correct communications? I mean, what are some of the pitfalls that you would sort of have?
I think the charging enough thing was a big thing. We had no idea what to charge, and when you're playing musician as a hobby in New York, you can play at a restaurant for $100 a night. And that seems to be the going rate. And I remember one conversation specifically where a CEO of can't name the company, but his assistant contacted us, and he was having something at one of his homes, I think in the Hamptons.
Right.
And we gave her a quote. It was early for us, so we didn't know what to charge. I think we might have said like $500 or something. And she's like, he's not even going to take this seriously unless it's like $2-3 grand. So I'm just going to write a number here that sounds good. And it was a lesson to us that you need to charge what you're worth.
Know your value.
Yeah, know your value, and understand that by undercharging, sometimes you're going to cause people to lose credibility in what you're doing.
That's a good lesson.
If you see a Mercedes-Benz selling for $4,000, you probably think something's wrong with it.
Right, right. That's interesting. So what are other things that you would give as a cautionary tale to others who may be listening that you learned along the way? What about management, or what about sales? Did you learn that you have to be aggressively selling, or do you have to, how do you get your name out there?
Definitely have to find clever ways to get out there.
Break through the clutter.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people doing it.
Definitely have to be creative, but you have to be creative with what you're working with, be realistic in how you see the thing that you're doing, and then get creative, because if you don't really know what this thing is, then you can't really be critical about how to maximize this thing.
So articulate to everyone what this thing is in your mind, so that they can help them in articulating what their thing is.
Okay. Say, for instance, we know we are a minimal group. We can't be expected to, though we can market to big events, we can't expect to be...
we're not a party band.
Yeah, we're not a party band.
Stay in your lane.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same point, we can still do those events, and we can do from cocktail reception all the way to dinner. After dinner, get your party band or get your DJ, you know what I mean? Or sometimes we've even, based on the guests and the planners, we've been able to do the entire event because the demographic, they aren't really partiers, Right. They want to be able to just relax and listen to great music and
I agree with the stay in your lane thing, but I think more importantly for us, it was about creating your own lane.
Creating your own lane, yeah. Because you are very different than other, haven't seen any other groups like you out there.
I think we're right in that middle ground of, it's not a string quartet because that's probably a little boring and not so relevant most of the time. And it's not overwhelming like the party band, but it is interesting and engaging like a party band would be. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice mix where you can have something elegant and you can still have something cool. And it's also not a big footprint. It's fun to look at. Right. And, I think for a lot of events, they would have never thought to have entertainment because this wasn't an option before.
Right. How do you think about the idea that you're an event musician? It seems like that the world is now ready for that a lot of like Nora Jones and people like that started out that way. Is it a career pathway still? It seems like it should be.
Absolutely.
This is like the way, this is like one way of doing it.
Yeah.
I personally think a lot of musicians need to go back to the drawing board and seriously consider this path if it's done right, because it allows a much greater ability to be free and to be organic, and it's not being stuck with a record label who's deciding what your style is going to be. It's fun for us to do a Latin themed event one day and to really fool around and become familiar, and it challenges you as an artist.
Well, it's kind of the ultimate challenge as an artist. I mean, if you're dealing with different people all the time,
Right.
and at the same time you're trying to keep your integrity.
Exactly.
I think you have to. One of the key rules is don't be everything for everybody,
Right.
And stay and understand what you do, what you're saying earlier. But it is an interesting path. I mean, the music business is changing dramatically. I mean, how does someone make money in the music business today? I mean, what are the choices? I mean, this is probably one of the most lucrative ways of getting money.
absolutely.
We like to consider this our day job, and then when we do go to record or do any other thing outside of events, that's more the play. But yeah, this is our events industry is our day job.
Is this where your contemporaries are going to? Do you see this as a growing area? Do you see a lot of other people that are like, you get together with all the other people that perform at events? I don't think you do, right?
Yeah, I still think a lot of them are chasing the dream. They want to be the next Mariah, or, they want to be a big pop star, and they haven't realized, the glamour is something that is hard to distract an artist from chasing.
Right. But the paycheck, the fact is you get paid for this in a much more lucrative way.
Right. And it's steady.
It's steady,
you can pick up a big Fortune 500 company and they're going to hire you a few times a year.
Right.
And
but however, you are doing it in New York City, which is one of the capitals of the event world and the entertainment world and the commerce world and the finance world. How do you do it if you're in a smaller town? Can you still create this path, or do you have to be in New York to really make a living out of this in a good way?
I think you can. You just need to learn the market you're trying to go into. See what's lacking and try to fill that place. Every town has a venue. They do weddings, they do funerals, they do things like
Funerals?
that.
Are you doing funerals?
We've done a few.
Oh, God. Okay, spill it. Explain it.
It was a little odd. It was,
Okay.
Bit sad, yeah.
And sad, yeah.
So how do you prepare for that one?
We didn't. She called
It was
us.
quick,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was her mom passed away unexpectedly, and she loved our music, and I guess her mom maybe loved our music.
Yeah.
and-
Well, it makes sense. I mean, music is something that makes it so human and so
Yeah.
It's just, I
emotional.
think for us, we're so used to playing the people who are enjoying the music that when everyone's crying because, oh, she loved that song, and oh, she loved this song, and people are bawling, it's like, should we stop? No, we want to keep crying. It's
quite emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's to answer the question though, it's still, there's still always an opportunity, no matter small town or not. You just gotta study the market that you want to get into.
So as we kind of wrap up, what do you see as the future for you guys in the event world first, and then your personal careers in this? Do you see it changing, or do you see it? I mean, first of all, how many songs do you know that you've memorized? I want to know that number.
I don't even know.
Thousands?
No,
Is it that
Hundreds?
I would say maybe like 300-400 songs.
Yeah, about that and counting.
Is there like a trick? I've been trying to figure this out myself to memorizing all this stuff. Like, is there something that you do that, I mean, I'm not a singer, so I don't know anything about this. So how do you just have this innate ability to memorize?
Knowing the rhythm of a song helps. Like we'll map out where this song is going to go, and then I'll work separately and try to break down the lyrics with it. And for me personally, knowing the rhythms and the timing of things allowed me to memorize it easily.
How many hours of practice is there to how many hours of performance? Is there like a ratio of like 10-1 or something like that?
This part we do not condone. We rarely rehearse.
Really?
We actually just rehearse at the gigs.
Because you're so
we have
polished.
We just have a great connection, and I'd say probably 60 to 70% of our performances are just improv. Like, we're just kind of having fun and fooling around, and so you'll see us do a song on a Monday and hear it Tuesday, and you're like, wow, you guys did it really differently. And well, we haven't really solidified that song yet, so we're just testing out different things.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how do you see the guest experience changing at events? Are you seeing anything from your perspective? Do you see people enjoying this type of entertainment more than other types of entertainment?
Definitely.
Like, who would you throw under the bus?
Never.
No, is it like the DJ or the?
I'll throw the DJs and the wedding bands under the bus, and specifically because to me, it shouldn't be a
You're getting the look.
well, just, you know what? I think people need to listen. And clients are always saying to us, I love that I could have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem. If a client says, hey, I've done 1 billion parties and this is the first one I could have a conversation, maybe the entertainment industry needs to kind of take a hint, lower the volume. You don't need to bring in these massive speakers. It's not a club.
Is the noise a huge issue? I mean,
it is. Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, is that like I always complain, even with the biggest bands, that you can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything. Yeah, it's too much.
It's
just settle down. You know, you're here as a musical touch to the event. It's not an actual concert. You know.
Well, even the big bands in the evening afterwards, like the party bands, you can't talk.
Right.
Yeah. Get all your talking in during cocktail hour and dinner.
Talk while we're there.
So how do you? Let's end on the note about where you see you guys in the next 10 years. I mean, you've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah, about 5 years now.
Where are you in 10 years? And how does your musical taste change? Does it change? Do you get more traditional? What do you see? What's in your
I think
mind?
we'll expand. We do want to go more into writing for film and television, scoring, commercials, different things like that.
Fashion,
yeah. Definitely want to have a line that's inspired by some of the outfits that we wear for
Lifestyle.
events.
Yeah. Also, even just experimenting with fusions outside of just the music. I think there could be some acutely inflected visual aspects to what we do, with maybe lighting and dancers. Things that are on brand, minimal and sophisticated, but engaging and artistic, and maintain that integrity.
I mean, even food.
And we love food, so.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
That's great.
So,
well, I thank you so much for doing this. This has been so interesting and so inspiring, and I hope that our listeners will learn a lot from your journey. And I certainly get total enjoyment out every time I go see you guys perform. And so I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
My
Thanks
pleasure.
for having us.
The only one I ever seen with a smile so bright, come and smile for them. And just the other day, you came around my way and changed my whole scenery with your astonishing beauty. You couldn't make a sister sing, and everything a supernatural being. I know you are just brighter than the moon, brighter than the sun.
Before we sign off, I want to plug our coverage of the Academy Awards. Everything in awards season has been leading up to this, so check out our coverage of the most visual and interesting Oscar parties, brought to you by a village of vendors, as well as how event producers rated the show itself. Find it on BizBash.com. GatherGeeks producer is Dave Nelson. Our editorial liaison is Claire Hoffman, and Rebecca Pappas oversees audience development. If you like GatherGeeks, help us out by writing a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice to help others discover us. We'll be back next week. Gather on.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter @GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on.